Many of my clients are getting fantastic sales on the Amazon marketplace, and their sales keep growing, which is a great place to be. But there is one thing they all have in common that limits the growth of their business. In fact, it limits the growth of all businesses, which is cash flow. They have to reinvest their profits into buying more inventory. And to keep the business going, they have to buy more inventory before they get paid for their last order that they bought. And whilst profits is relatively easy to work out, cash flows are far more difficult. And understanding the relationship between profits and cash flows is not something you can work out in your head. So I made a spreadsheet model specifically for people selling on the Amazon marketplace that not only works out profits for the next year, but also your cash flows. And in particular, how much money you will need to invest in your business and when the business will turn cash flow positive. Plus, I designed the spreadsheet so you can compare two different scenarios like price A versus price B, different volumes, different growth rates, air freight versus sea freight, different products, different costs, and different production times. So this spreadsheet enables you to look into the future. What will my business look like in 12 months' time if I made this decision? At the end of the video, there'll be a link where you can download the spreadsheet. But first I need to explain how it works so you can get the most from this very powerful tool. So let's go through the process that people use in terms of looking at initially setting up their Amazon business. You'll go out and do the research and you'll find a product, and you find a best-selling product. In this case, sells for between $25 and $45. You find the supplier. Now we've found the supplier manufacturing at $7, freight at $5, Amazon costs at about $8 per sale. So we end up with so we can calculate fairly quickly what profit we're going to make. So at $25.99, 20 units a day, it's going to equal $190,000 per annum. 50 units a day, $475,000 per annum. 103 units a day, we're going to get to $1 million. So then we can do some quick calculations on that in terms of profit. So we're going to sell it at $25.99. It's going to cost us all up $20. So we're making profits of $5.99, almost $6. So we've got sell 103 a day, $225,000 in gross profits. Let's say $75,000 in expenses, $150,000 profit. Now, you'd be pretty happy with $150,000 worth of profit. I mean, it's twice as much as the average wage for someone in Australia. But we're going to run a test run. So we order the minimum amount, 500 units, and we sell it on Amazon at $25.99. And it sells out in 10 days. So all of a sudden you made $3,000 in 10 days. I mean, it's equal to $100,000 a year. Plus, it can get better. You can optimize your review, you can add more content to it and better images and more reviews. And so you think you can grow this from 500 units in 10 days. You think, okay, well, I can grow this. So you're aiming to grow it at 20% per year. And what happens? 1 year later, you got $1 million in sales, $150,000 in profits, and you're $100,000 worse off. So rather than having $150,000 in the bank account, you owe $100,000. Now you've drawn that down a line of credit from your mortgage or borrowed it from friends or borrowed it from the bank. So you may ask, why are you $100,000 worse off when you're making these profits of $150,000 a year? Well, you've had to reinvest those profits into more inventory. So you're buying inventory for sales that occur in 64 days' time. Plus the growth rate of 20%, which means you're buying 44% more inventory than you're selling now. And the fourth factor is that your gross profit rate is not high enough to self-fund inventory. But what if you knew beforehand that that model that you had was going to result in that situation of about $100,000 worse off? Would you have made different decisions in terms of where you think that business is going, what price you're going to sell at, whether you're going to sell that product or a different product, what volume you're going to sell at, because profits are not equal to cash flows. And the main reason being is you have to invest your profits into more stock. You're going to have to buy more stock to maintain the sales before you get paid for the last batch of sales. And this is basically working capital, the funds required for inventory and debtors. And there's a complex relationship between profit and cash flow, and it's not something you can work out in your head. Now, in this business, for the Amazon business, we've got a fairly tight series of assumptions, so it means that we can limit the relationships and the number of variables. But even for this Amazon business, we've got 8 factors that affect the profit. And we've got 8 additional factors that affect cash flow and how much money you will need to invest and reinvest into the business. And using the spreadsheet, you can change any of these variables and find out the profit and loss and cash flows for the next year. Plus, you can compare 2 different scenarios: product pricing, growth, volume, whatever you happen to like. So let's look at the profit and loss factors. The first one is going to be the sale price of $25.99. And you're going to sell 1,500 units in the first month. We're then going to, as you learn more about the business, we're making the assumption that we're going to grow at a 20% per month. And the cost of the product, we've got that set at $7 in terms of the cost of manufacturing FOB from China. We've got freight costs of $5 for freight and duties and actually getting it to the Amazon store ready for sale. We've got Amazon costs of $8 a unit for selling, freight and warehouse costs. We've got advertising costs, $1 a unit. And we've got other expenses, wages, designers, bookkeepers, bank fees, training, subscriptions, and we're just putting there at $4,000 a month. So in terms of the cash flow factors, we've got, we have to order the product and pay a deposit. We're saying, in this case, 50% deposit on order. The manufacturer takes a number of days to build the product to your specifications, so we're going to say 40 days. You pay, when the manufacturer is ready to ship it, you pay the balance of the order, being 50% or $3.50. The goods are shipped from China to the US, which takes a number of days, in which case we're assuming 7. You pay freight and duties and other costs when it arrives in the US, so it's another $5 in those costs. It takes a number of days from the docks to the Amazon warehouse ready for sale, so we're assuming 2 days. And you've got to have enough stock on hand to sell before the next shipment arrives. So we're assuming you've got an average of 15 days worth of stock there. And so, of course, in the model, you can change any of these assumptions. And then the product sells and Amazon pay you less their costs 3 days after the end of each fortnight, which is 10 days. So let's see how these assumptions fit into our cash flow model. So here we have our cash flow model, and we've got down the bottom here, for those of you who are not familiar with Excel, we've got 4 sheets. The only one you need to enter the information on is the start here, and in the green cells are the ones we can change. So we can change the scenario that we want, in this case price low and price high. So we've got $25.99 for our sale price. We expect to sell 1,500 units in the first month, and we're going to grow it by 20% per month over the next 12 months. The supplier cost is $7 per unit, and we have to pay a deposit up front of 50% for them to make the goods. And it's going to take them 40 days to make the goods, 7 days to ship from the factory to the docks in the US, $5 freight costs, and $2 from the docks to the Amazon warehouse. Now you can change any of these figures to what your particular specifications happen to be. And we're assuming that Amazon are going to charge $8 for warehouse delivery and their sales costs, listing fees, etc. And we're going to assume that advertising is costing $1 a unit. We've got $4,000 in other expenses, and the start date. So you can change this date to any date you like, but start at the beginning of the month. So if you happen to be in July, then we can start from July. So let's see where these assumptions with the low price end up. So we've got a gross profit rate of 23% and we've got advertising costs of 3.8%. Just as a point of note, if it's below 30%, you're going to have problems in terms of your cash flow. So we've got total sales for the year, $1 million. That was what you're aiming for. We've got profits of $146,000, so it's pretty close to that $150,000. Maximum cash needed, $106,000. Does bank account go positive in 12 months? No. Month cash flow never turns positive. It's bleeding money at $7,500 a month. The bank account at the end of 12 months is $106,000, and basically you've got $200,000 worth of inventory sitting there at one point. What that means is you've got to be sure that you're going to sell that inventory. A client came to me a while ago and they had this fantastic product. They had a couple of $1 million in sales. Things were going fantastic, but they kept on having to reinvest into their stock. So they borrowed more money on their mortgage to put into the business to buy more stock. And they were profitable, and they were thinking, why is this money always going out and never coming back in? Because they looked at their profits but not their cash flow. And they ended up with a very similar situation to this, and that just the numbers were slightly bigger. And the problem is two things happened. One, they got on the wrong side of the Google algorithm, so that a lot of their traffic was coming from Google organic search and it was started to fade away. And the other one is the market started to change slightly and all their stock started to look outdated. So they weren't able to recover their stock. Very difficult position, and part of their problem was their gross profit rate was too low. So let's assume that rather than doing that test at $25.99, we did a test at $34.99. So it's basically a 35% increase in the sale price, but it's still within the range of products. But we're going to not sell 1,500 units a month. We're going to sell 500 units a month, which is 1/3 of the hive. So we're going to concentrate on really just getting profits rather than sales. And all the other assumptions are the same. In this case, we've got a much better gross profit rate at 43%. We've got sales at 450,000, which is significantly less than half of the low price option. The profits are almost the same, but does the bank account go positive in 12 months? Yes. The maximum cash needed is 22,000, and it goes cash flow positive in July. And in this model, the monthly cash flow at the end of the year is $16,000 positive. You've got $41,000 in the bank account and a significantly lower amount of stock. Now, if we wanted, we can go and there is actually profit and loss, a cash flow summary, and a balance sheet. So if you want to drop those into, any projections or talking to the banks, etc., you can use that. There is a couple of assumptions that we need to make clear. This assumes an incredibly efficient operation in terms of your stock. It assumes that you're running out of stock on the day that the next level of stock arrives. And it also assumes that you're ordering stock at the beginning of each month. So on the first of each month, you're putting in a stock order for effectively 2 months, what you expect the sales to be in 2 months. So let's say we wanted to change this round, and rather than we're going to keep the same prices and the same volume, but rather than taking it via air freight, we're going to say, okay, we can get it at $1 and it's going to take a longer period of time. So it's going to take 30 days to ship to the US, and then it's going to take 10 days to unpack the container and move it through. And so in this situation, Same product, same price, we've just changed it between sea freight and air freight. We've got, okay, in this instance, we've got a slightly lower sales because it's taking longer for the first shipment to arrive. So we're not actually making a sale until July in this case, as opposed to the other ones making a sale a month earlier. The profits are significantly higher, and we've got half the level of maximum cash flow needed, and it's also a positive cash flow. So by reducing the costs, we've actually increased our gross profit from 23% to 38%, and it's ended up being in a far more positive position in terms of the monthly cash flow. If you'd like your own copy of this spreadsheet so you can put in your own numbers and see what effect changes in the variables will make to your business, just enter your name and email address below and I'll send it to you.